What I discovered while exhuming bodies at the cemetery 5 years ago still leaves me confused. I was 30, working as a forensic archaeologist, and balancing my life as a single dad to my preteen daughter, Alice. I remember that day clear as day. It was quiet. The breeze rustled the leaves above me. I walked to a secluded section of Greenwood Cemetery that I'd found a few weeks earlier. I knelt on the ground, brushing dirt from a grave marker. The sun was setting, casting long shadows between the trees. I felt a chill in the air, even if it was warm. I focused back on my work. I often got lost in it. It brought me comfort. As I catalogued the remains, something shiny caught my eye. My heart raced a little as I reached for it. I pulled it from the roots of an old oak tree. It was a locket. Holding it, I felt unease creeping in, but I dismissed it as exhaustion. I opened the locket and saw a faded photograph of a woman. She looked sad and almost pleading. That image sent ice through my veins. I shook off the feeling. But in the days that followed, I started having dreams about her. She stood under that oak tree, her eyes wide and searching for something. I woke up feeling my heart pound. I thought they were just dreams, but they grew more vivid each night. The more I visited the cemetery, the stranger things became. Flowers at some graves withered, as if life drained from them. Items I placed carefully shifted positions. One day, I found a childish toy lying feet away from where I left it. I felt sick but tried to brush it off as paranoia. Alice started talking too. She claimed to see shadows moving around the cemetery, dark figures lingering just out of sight. I could see the fear in her eyes. I tried to reassure her, but a knot formed in my stomach. I wondered if I was losing my grip on reality. I wanted to connect the locket to the shadows and the dreams. I spent nights turning over questions in my head. Was it all tied to that woman? Or was my mind tricking me? Then one evening, I stared at the locket again. I heard a crack nearby. My heart lurched as I turned toward the sound. Standing there in the fading light was the woman. Her eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. The shadows around me thickened. I felt frozen. I couldn't breathe as her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. I blinked hard, hoping this was a trick of the light. But she didn't disappear. She remained there, a specter cloaked in shadows. My hands went clammy as I took a small step back. The silence around us felt thick, pressing down on me. I strained to hear her words, but they were just a whisper carried away by the wind. Panic rose within me, but I was glued to the spot, trapped by a mixture of fear and curiosity. Who was she? Why was she here? I fought against the instinct to run, trying to remind myself I had to understand. Then she raised her hand slowly, as if beckoning me. The gesture sent a thrill of dread coursing through me. I glanced back at the path leading away from the cemetery. It was inviting, but I was rooted in place. What do you want? I managed to stammer, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman's expression changed. It became more urgent, almost desperate. She continued speaking, her lips moving faster now, but the words still eluded me. I felt frustration rising. Why couldn't I hear her? Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the cemetery, like the breaking of a branch. I jumped, torn between the woman's intangible presence and the reality of the world around me. Just as quickly as it came, the noise faded, leaving only the rustle of leaves. I looked back, and she was pointing toward the grave I had been excavating earlier. My heart raced again. Did she want me to dig further? When I didn't move, she pointed insistently, and something in her eyes sparked a sense of urgency. I finally broke the spell and ran to the grave, my hands shaking as I fumbled to remove the remaining dirt. It felt wrong to disturb what had rested peacefully, but I was consumed with the need to reveal whatever secret lay beneath. As I dug deeper, I uncovered the edge of something hard and rectangular. With trembling hands, I scraped away the dirt until I could fully pull it into the light. It was a small box, ornate and locked tight. My heart thundered as I examined it. That was when I felt a sudden chill sweep through the air, like a cold wind rushing by. I turned back to look for her, but she was gone. The cemetery felt heavier now. I took a deep breath and wiped away the beads of sweat forming on my forehead. The dark shadows seemed to shift, creeping closer as if emboldened by her absence. I could almost swear I felt eyes watching me. What was inside the box? Was it truly connected to the woman? And what did this mean for Alice and me? As I hurriedly tucked the box under my arm to take it home, a strange feeling washed over me. I was being followed. My heart sank as I heard soft footsteps behind me. Someone or something was in the cemetery with me. I wasn't alone after all. My pace quickened toward the exit, adrenaline coursing through me. I could sense the lurking shadows swirling in the darkness. I couldn't shake the feeling that answers awaited me, but so did danger. I dashed toward the gate, my mind racing. The footsteps behind me echoed, becoming louder with each hurried step. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw nothing but shadows. My imagination was playing tricks, but I could feel something just out of sight, lingering in the dark. I burst through the iron gate and into the street. The cool night air hit my face like a splash of cold water. I stopped for a moment to catch my breath, my pulse still thundering from the adrenaline. I glanced back at the cemetery, the moonlight casting eerie patterns through the trees. It stood as an ominous reminder of what I'd just uncovered. The box tucked under my arm felt heavy. I hurried home, longing for the comfort of familiar walls, but that feeling didn't shield me from the lingering unease in my gut. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, locking it behind me. I needed to know what was in that box. As I positioned it on the kitchen table, I noticed my hands were still trembling. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, then reached toward the box. It was ornate, covered in intricate designs that hinted at age. The lock was old, an elaborate mechanism that seemed stubborn, as if guarding whatever secrets lay within. I rummaged through the kitchen drawers until I found a small screwdriver. With each turn, my heart raced. What if the box contained something dangerous? Something related to that woman? I hesitated, but curiosity won. Finally, the lock clicked open. I lifted the lid slowly, the sound echoing through the stillness of my house. Inside, I found a collection of faded letters, yellowed with age and tied together with a piece of twine. I pulled them out carefully, examining the first few pages. The letters were addressed to someone named Margaret. They spoke of love, loss, and betrayal, written in a hurried script that trembled with emotion. The third letter caught my attention, the words becoming dark and frantic as the writer's tone shifted abruptly. "They are watching me," it said. "I fear for my life. If you find this, know the truth is buried under the old oak tree." The mention of the oak tree sent a chill down my spine. I remembered seeing an enormous oak at the far corner of the cemetery. What truth was buried there? As I mulled over the implications, I heard a faint knock at the door. My heart dropped. "Who is there?" I called out, but my voice trembled. No response came, only an unsettling silence that crawled into the room. I approached the door cautiously, peeking through the peephole. Nothing. Just shadows dancing in the dim light of the porch. I turned back to the table, my eyes fixated on the letters. Their weight felt heavier now, almost like they were alive. I thought about the woman's urgent expression, the way she had pointed toward that grave. She had been trying to tell me something, but I had only scratched the surface. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the kitchen into darkness for a heartbeat. I felt a rush of cold air against my skin, and dread pooled in my stomach. Something wasn't right. Then, as if answering my unspoken thoughts, I heard a whisper, soft yet unmistakable. "Find me." It wasn't just a voice in my head. It was real. I froze, staring into the darkness that enveloped me. The letters fell from my hands, scattering across the floor, and my heart raced as I realized I had to uncover the truth. Whatever I had opened couldn't remain buried any longer. I knelt on the floor, the letters strewn around me like fallen leaves. My heart pounded loudly in my ears, drowning out everything else. The whispers echoed, mingling with my thoughts. "Find me." It was more than just a command. It felt like a plea. I sat back on my heels and tried to push the panic away. I needed to think clearly. The oak tree, the letters, Margaret. I had to go back to the cemetery. But the idea terrified me. The shadows there felt alive, watching, waiting. The lights flickered again. I glanced up at the ceiling, half expecting the light to go out entirely. Instead, it steadied, casting a weak glow over the chaos. But the unease remained, a shiver running down my spine. I forced myself to focus on the letters. There was something in the last few pages that had triggered my anxiety earlier. I scrambled to piece them together, my fingers shaking as I picked up the last letter. The handwriting was frantic, the ink blotted with what looked like tears. If anyone finds this, the truth must come to light. I cannot trust anyone just like that. The weight of those words sank in. The writer felt betrayed, isolated, terrified. I wiped the sweat from my brow and pushed myself off the floor, putting the letters back in the box. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Whatever was at the oak tree held significant importance. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and checked the clock. It was past midnight. If I left now, I'd arrive at the cemetery just before dawn. My fingers fumbled as I opened the door, glancing around to see if anyone was out there. The street was empty, shrouded in a thick blanket of fog. I walked quickly, every sound amplified in the stillness of the night. I felt eyes on me, but every glance over my shoulder revealed nothing but fog swirling in the dark. My breath quickened. I could almost hear the voice again, urging me to hurry. When I reached the gate of the cemetery, I hesitated. The iron bars loomed ominously above me, but the thrill of discovery pushed aside my fear. I stepped through and made my way to the old oak. It stood tall and solitary, gnarled branches stretching skyward as if begging for release. As I approached, I noticed the ground was disturbed, the soil freshly turned. Panic surged through me. Had someone else been here? Had they already uncovered whatever secrets lay below? I dropped to my knees and began to dig, my fingers clawing through the damp earth, heart racing. Then I hit something solid. My pulse quickened as I unearthed a small, tarnished locket. It was delicate but inscribed with initials. MG. I turned it over in my hand, feeling a rush of energy, as if it pulsed with a life of its own. That S when I saw it. A shadow flitted just past the corner of my eye. I whipped around, breath caught in my throat. Someone was here with me. I felt paralyzed, rooted to the spot. The whispers returned, louder this time. Find me. As I turned back to the locket in my hand, I had no idea who or what was really seeking me. I froze, the locket heavy in my palm. Who was out there? I scanned the darkness, my heart hammering against my chest. The voice urged me again, insistent and desperate. Find me. I felt the weight of the locket tug at me, as if it wanted me to investigate further. Margaret, I whispered, hoping the name might summon some fragment of courage. But the air was thicker now, pressing down around me like a weight. Then I heard a rustle in the bushes behind the oak. A figure emerged, jagged in the dim light, creeping closer. Even in my fright, I recognized the silhouette. It was Emily, my neighbor. Emily? My voice trembled, caught somewhere between relief and dread. Maybe she could shed some light on all of this. What are you doing here? Her eyes were wide, darting between me and the graveyard. I saw you leave. I wanted to make sure you were okay, she replied. But her voice held an edge of fear, matching my own. I found this. I lifted the locket, its surface gleaming dully. It's Margaret's. I think it belonged to her. Emily stepped closer, her brow furrowing. Let me see. She reached for it, her fingers brushing mine. The moment our skin touched, a flash of heat shot through me, and the whispers surged again, a whirlwind of voices, entangled with one another. Do you hear that? My voice was barely audible over the chaos in my mind. Emily nodded slowly, her face paling. So loud. Like they're trapped. The realization crashed down on me. The cemetery. The voices. They weren't just echoes of the past. They were a warning, a call for help. I clutched the locket tighter. We need to uncover the truth. We need to know what happened here. As I looked back at the oak, a realization struck me: the tree was more than just a burial marker. The way the roots twisted over the ground suggested something hidden below. I felt a surge of determination coursing through me. "Let us dig," I said, looking at Emily. She hesitated, uncertainty flickering in her eyes, but then she nodded. We dropped to our knees, once again clawing at the earth. Each handful of dirt sent fragments of fear tearing down my spine. Half-buried roots clawed at my fingers as we worked, the locket glinting beside us. After a few minutes, we struck something hard, something rectangular. I cupped my hands and pulled out an old box, weathered and locked tight. My heart raced again, not from fear this time, but anticipation. "Do you think it's—" Emily whispered, her voice cutting off. "I don't know." I held the box firmly, the weight of secrets bearing down. "But we have to find out." Before I could react, a loud snap echoed through the cemetery. I snapped my head up, the whispers falling silent. A cloud had shifted, revealing the moon, and in its silvery light, I saw the figures emerging from the fog around us, more shadows, mired in darkness. "We're not alone," I said, anxiety creeping back like a slow chill. And then they began to move closer. I stared at the figures as they drifted through the fog, their outlines hazy yet unmistakably human. Panic surged through me, a primal instinct urging me to flee, but my body refused to cooperate, rooted to the spot as if bound by invisible chains. "Emily," I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. I glanced at her, and saw she was trembling, her face pale under the moonlight. "What do we do?" Before she could respond, one figure stepped forward, its features sharpening into focus. It was a woman, her hair long and flowing, her clothes tattered. My heart raced as I recognized the expression on her face. Despair mingled with hope. "Margaret," I called impulsively, the name spilling from my lips. The moment it left me, I regretted it, but the woman didn't flinch. She only continued moving closer, the intensity of her gaze fixated on the locket in my hand. "Behind you," Emily whispered, her voice low and panicked. I turned just in time to see more figures materializing from the shadows, a group of them, their eyes hollow, faces frozen in agony. "What do you want?" I shouted, the fear rising in my chest. "Why are you here?" The air tightened around us, thick and cold. The figures pressed forward, their mouths opening but no words came out. Instead, the whispers returned, louder now, a chorus desperate for release. "Help us, please," they seemed to chant, a haunting plea that tugged at my heart. All of their eyes were on the locket. It ignited something deep within me, a sense of urgency that overpowered my fear. I looked down at it, realization hitting me. "It's connected to them," I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. "Then we need to," Emily started. But before she could finish, the ground beneath us shifted. The ancient oak creaked, roots shifting violently as if something below was awakening. A tremor ran through the earth, and the figures halted, each one looking down in unison. Then everything erupted. A torrent of dirt flew into the air as the box I had unearthed burst open. The contents spilled out, a collection of brittle letters, yellowed with age, alongside a small, tarnished key. The whispers transformed into anguished cries, drowning out my thoughts. What had I uncovered? My instinct told me to gather the letters, to read their stories and solve this mystery. But as I reached for one, a dark figure shot forward from the crowd, reaching for the key with a desperate urgency that froze my blood. "No!" I screamed. My instinct took over. I lunged, but the figure was too fast. It snatched the key and darted back, melding into the shadows as the others howled in frustration. "Emily, we have to go!" I cried out, fear consuming me. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her back toward the path we'd come from, but she hesitated, her eyes fixed on the chaos behind us. "Wait, we can't just leave this," she implored. "You don't understand," I shouted back, panic clenching my throat. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." I tugged at her again, adrenaline pumping as I raced toward the cemetery gate. The voices echoed in my mind, urgent and commanding. But as I reached the edge of the graveyard, a chilling realization struck me. I wasn't safe, not yet. Whatever I had stumbled into had only just begun. As we stepped into the night, a cold wind whipped around us, carrying the whispers with it. And in that moment, I knew we were only at the beginning of something dark and twisted. We stumbled down the path, my heart pounding in my ears. I kept glancing back, half expecting the figures to chase us. But they remained behind, whispering, their haunting voices fading into the night. "Emily, let us just get to the car," I urged, pulling her along. "We need to get out of here. There's something more happening," she insisted, fighting against my grip. "That key, it must mean something." I shook my head, frustration bubbling up. "We can't go back. Those spirits, or whatever they are, they're not going to just let us waltz in and read their letters." She caught my gaze, determination flashing in her eyes. "But what if the letters tell us how to help them? What if they're trapped?" The idea settled heavily in my chest. I knew she was right, but what if digging deeper only put us further in danger? We could already feel the weight of the past pressing around us, and it felt too immense to confront. "Emily," I said, my voice firm but worried, "if we go back, we'd be risking everything." "Everything?" she echoed, her voice shaking. "You saw their faces, their desperation. It's not just a story, Alex. They need us." I paused, torn. The key could unlock more than just a box of letters. It might open a door to understanding the turmoil that had seeped into the land around us. The thought was enough to make my skin crawl. "Fine," I finally said, a reluctant acceptance. "But we have to be smart about it. We go in, retrieve what we can, and get out. No heroics." Emily nodded, and together we made our way back to the cemetery. The fog had thickened, curling around our legs like tendrils searching for warmth. When we returned, the eerie silence felt suffocating, broken only by the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees. As we stepped into the graveyard, our footsteps muffled by the grass, I caught sight of the disturbed soil. The box now lay open, contents scattered like secrets spilled. A wave of dread washed over me. "We're not alone," I whispered. A chill lingered in the air, more intense than before. And then I noticed the shadows flickering beyond the oak tree, figures shifting and coalescing. They weren't just whispers anymore, they were watching. "Emily," I hissed, "get back." But she was already moving forward, drawn to the letters that had escaped the box. "Help us," the voices now murmured, wrapping around us like dark tendrils. "Please." I fought against an urge to flee as fear washed over me, but I also felt a strange pull toward the letters. It was as if they were calling me, begging to share their story. "Don't," I warned, but she knelt beside the scattered papers, her fingers brushing over the faded ink. "Look," she breathed, unfolding one. Her eyes widened as she read something aloud. "To my dearest Margaret, I fear you 1T received this letter in that moment." The ground beneath us trembled again, shaking the air with a low growl. Then, a bone-chilling sound erupted from the shadows, a scream that echoed off the gravestones, chilling me to my core. I froze, fear coursing through me. Something was definitely wrong, and I needed to get Emily away from that box. Before I could gather my thoughts, a flash of movement caught my eye. From the darkness between the trees, the dark figure emerged again, key in hand, and it was headed straight for us. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging as I grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the whispering shadows. This time, there would be no hesitation. Whatever was waiting for us, I was determined to face it head-on. As we bolted between the gravestones, panic-fueled adrenaline surged through my veins. The sound of our footsteps drowned out the whispered voices, but every breath felt like an invitation for the darkness to close in on us. Emily, still clinging to the remnants of the letters scattered across the ground, stumbled slightly. I yanked her upright and kept running. "Over there." I pointed toward a narrow path leading to the exit of the cemetery. The moonlight illuminated just enough to see it, but shadows slithered just beyond the trees like they had a mind of their own. The figure with the key was behind us, and I could hear its footsteps echoing through the quiet night, relentless and sinister. "Alex, wait!" Emily shouted as I dragged her along. I paused briefly, trying to discern the sounds behind us. The figure was gaining on us, its footsteps echoing in a rising tempo. Without thinking, I pushed forward, half dragging her. Once we reached the edge of the path, I pivoted and turned back toward her, urgency coursing through me. "We need to find a place to hide," I said, scanning the area for options. There was a small, crumbling mausoleum a few feet away, cloaked in shadow. "The mausoleum," she gasped. Without hesitation, we dashed toward it, shadows swirling around us like dark clouds as we crossed open ground. As we neared the door, a shriek pierced the air again, fingers gripping at my spine like icy tendrils. I threw myself against the door and shoved Emily inside with me. It creaked ominously as we entered, the darkness enveloping us completely. My eyes strained to adjust, the faint stench of dampness filling my nostrils. Inside we paused, our ragged breaths echoing against the stone walls. I glanced around, trying to make sense of the dim surroundings. It felt like we had stepped into another time, the silence heavy and suffocating. "Do you think it saw us?" Emily whispered, her voice tinged with fear. "I don't know," I replied, my heart hammering. "But we need to stay quiet." Right then, the door rattled, splintering with groaning under the weight of whatever was on the other side. My pulse raced as the darkness pressed in closer, filled with unseen eyes. I turned, hoping to find a way out if it came to that, but the exit was blocked by creeping shadows now inside with us. The rattling stopped abruptly, leaving only silence that felt like it could swallow us whole. I felt Emily's hand gripped tightly in mine. She was trembling. And then, something slumped against the door, heavy and deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. Those whispered voices returned, murmuring so close that it felt like they were inside my head. "Help us, Emily," I breathed, sensing the urgent rise of dread. "What do we do?" Before she could respond, a faint glow appeared at the back of the mausoleum. I squinted into the shadows, my heart pounding at a new sight emerging from the darkness. It was small and sat at the foot of a cold, weathered sarcophagus. "Look," Emily whispered, pointing directly toward it. The light flickered, revealing an engraved box. Its design was etched in symbols that seemed almost familiar. My mind raced. It was similar to the key. "How is it here?" I asked, fear slicing through my thoughts. "What does it mean?" As I stepped closer, a sudden crash resounded from the door, forcing us to jump back. Whatever was out there was relentless, more determined than ever to get to us. I looked to Emily and found her eyes wide with fear but also something resembling hope. "Maybe it's a way to communicate," she said, breathless. "We need to open it. This could be the answer." But just as the thought settled, the door splintered again, threatening to give way. The urgency twisted in my gut. I could feel the weight of the past pressing against us from outside. As the door buckled under the force, everything went dark. When the light vanished, the world around us turned into a void. I blinked, trying to will my eyes to adjust, but the darkness seemed to consume everything. I could still hear Emily's quick breaths beside me, feel the warmth of her body pressed against mine. The fear in the air was thick, almost tangible. Suddenly, a flicker of light returned, brighter this time. It illuminated the engraved box, casting eerie shadows that danced along the mausoleum walls. I grabbed Emily's wrist to steady myself. "I think I can see something," I said, moving cautiously toward the box. As I drew nearer, I could make out more details. The symbols glowed softly, almost pulsing in rhythm with my heart. They reminded me of the patterns on the key, sending a shiver down my spine. "What did they mean?" "Do you know what that is?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No idea," I admitted, kneeling down beside it. "But we have to figure it out." I reached out, fingers brushing against the cool surface of the box. Just as I was about to lift the lid, another violent crash hit the door. The sound was deafening, rattling through the mausoleum and sending dust swirling into the air. I hesitated, glancing back at Emily. The fear in her eyes mirrored my own, and deep down, I knew we needed to hurry. "Just a second," I said, as the voices from outside began to rise again, winding through the cracks. "They want us to open it." Or they want to get in, Emily replied, her voice shaking. Either way, we can't sit here and wait, I insisted. With newfound determination, I gradually opened the box. It creaked in protest, revealing a collection of small objects nestled inside. My heart raced as I peered in. A faded photograph slipped out first, fluttering in the slight draft. I grabbed it before it could vanish into the shadows. The image depicted a group of people standing in front of our town's old church, shadows of who they once were. I saw familiar faces, but they looked different. It was as if this photograph was taken decades ago. Alex, look at this, Emily exclaimed, tugging at my arm. I turned to see her holding a small key, identical to the one we had seen just moments before. Somehow it was there with us, shimmering in the dim light. The crash came again, more forceful this time, and I could see splintered wood beginning to break through the door. Panic surged. We had seconds, maybe less. Emily, take the photograph. We need them both, I shouted, quickly shoving the key into her hand. She looked torn, fluttering between the photograph and the box. But time was running out. We couldn't think our way out of this. We had to act. Just go, I urged, grabbing the second key from the box as my own energy surged in defiance of the darkness outside. Emily hesitated for one last moment before grasping the photograph tightly, cradling it against her chest. The door buckled violently, and I braced myself. Let us find another way out. But as I turned to search for an escape, water suddenly began seeping through cracks in the mausoleum's floor, rising rapidly. I froze, realizing we were no longer safe. Emily, I shouted, and then I stumbled backwards into the shadows, terrified of what was to come. That's when the whispers became a chorus, calling for us, the voices intertwining with the rushing water, surrounding us. It felt surreal to be caught in the flood, panic tightening around me as the water rose from the ground, curling around everything like a living entity. We were trapped. The darkness closed in. Shadows danced on the walls. Emily, I shouted, my voice nearly lost in the turmoil. We have to find a way out. But as the engulfing chaos threatened to claim us, I noticed her eyes flickering with a mix of determination and fear. The key, she yelled, brandishing the small metal object I had given her. It must fit something. Amidst the cascading water, I searched desperately for a lock, a mechanism, anything that could lead to an escape. The mausoleum's walls were slick, and the shadows clung to every surface as if intent on pulling us under. Just as the water lapped at our knees, Emily pointed toward a small carved slot beneath the engraving that framed the box. It has to be there, she exclaimed, navigating through the rising tide toward the spot. Her heart-pounding urgency ignited a flame of hope in me. Try it. Clutching the key tightly, Emily knelt down, her hand trembling as she inserted it into the slot. I braced myself against the wall, watching in suspense, the whispers amplifying into a cacophony demanding our attention. Would it work? As she turned the key, a low rumble coursed through the mausoleum. The water suddenly stopped rising, as if frozen in time. We stared at each other, caught in an electrifying moment of expectation. With a grinding sound, the carved section swung open, revealing a dark passage beyond. The air shifted, moments of uncertainty flecked with urgency. This way, I urged, plunging forward. Before we could take more than a few steps, the door burst open behind us, releasing a wave of shadows that had not vanished with the water. I felt the chilling presence immediately, an overwhelming push that threatened to sweep us back, push us under into the maelstrom. Run! I shouted, my heart thrumming as I tore through the tunnel, the darkness swallowing us whole. Emily was close behind, her footsteps echoing louder than the shadows that chased us. We stumbled forward, the ground bedrock firm beneath our feet. A sense of urgency hung thick, but the tunnel felt endless, a heartbeat echoing, the relentless whispers growing in volume again. They weren't just beckoning, they were warning, pleading, a river of anguish spiraling toward us. Help us! Emily's fingers brushed mine as I led her deeper into the tunnel, shivering in the damp air. We have to get out, she gasped. But what about them? Not now, I shouted, pushing forward. I could feel the oppressive weight of those trapped spirits stretching behind us. The desperation in their voices almost broke me. But the key opened a path. It might lead us to safety. In my heart, I knew it was the only choice. Suddenly, the tunnel widened, spilling into a vast chamber. The illumination was faint, flickering from stones embedded in the walls, unearthly runes carved deep into stone. Is this? I breathed, the space pulsating with a strange energy. Emily gasped, her voice trembling. It must relate to the letters to Margaret. Amidst the eerily glowing chamber, we glimpsed a stone pedestal at the far end, an old, intricate box resting atop it. We need to check that, I urged, rushing forward. But just as we approached, shadows coiled around the pedestal. Figures flickered into existence, faces twisted in anguish. I froze, dread clawing at my stomach. Who are they? Their pain, it binds them. Emily cried, her voice catching. They're trapped, Alex. But the whispers had morphed into demanding shouts, the voices clashing. Release us. We are one, they echoed. I balked, disbelief ripping through me. We can't just, maybe we can, she cried back. If we uncover the truth, we might help them. It felt like a pitch of doubt simmered alongside our urgency. Reading the energy in the air was critical, but what if we unleashed something worse? As we gathered our courage, I heard a thin crack cutting through the chaos. I glanced back toward the entrance, but the swirling darkness had shifted. The figures continued to slink closer. We need to act fast, I called out to Emily. How? She quaked, her gaze fixed upon the box that glimmered like a beacon of hope amidst despair. Together, I said, risking a moment of certainty as I nodded at the pedestal. With trembling hands, I lifted the lid just as shadows darted forward, an unholy chorus surging around us. Inside were more letters, filled with the weight of years, their confessions leaking through, binding us momentarily to their stories. Read them. It's all we have, Emily urged. I opened the first letter, and words poured out like the whispers returning. A name trembling in the air. Margaret. I couldn't breathe, dread mingling with fear that set a haunting chill deep in my bones. Every letter bled sorrow and urgency. One ended with a plea. If anyone finds this, know the truth is buried, and the shackles bind us to sorrow. But before I could finish, I felt a cold touch grasp my wrist. I tugged away in fright as a strong gasp escaped Emily. They're angry. The figures began to swirl again, their shadows enveloping us, drawing closer. I read more frantically, the urgency of their stories pounding through me. But the whispers became screams, a cacophony of lost futures, almost too much to bear. If you don't stop us, we will never find peace, they echoed, clawing into my mind. I glanced at Emily, sheer panic igniting in her eyes. Were we meant to help them or destroy whatever binds them? Maybe it's both, I yelled back, the words spilling from my lips as I felt the pull mounting, as if we were caught in a riptide. With a surge of courage, I turned back to the letters, clutching them tight in my hands, feeling the energy surge pulse against my skin. We have to break the cycle. And right then, I wasn't sure whether it was a last desperate call or a new beginning. But I knew this would be our only chance to understand, to unveil the darkness. As the shadows converged upon us, I cried out, together, and in that moment, the chamber erupted into profound chaos, the energies clashing, fueling my form with fire. Would we find a way to heal or fall deeper into despair? Only the echoes held the answer as the world around me blurred. It all unraveled in those final moments, a devastating chaos blooming, illuminating the thin line between saving the past or becoming part of it.